Welcome to Maritime Matters, a podcast focused on leaders in the maritime market, the people, the companies, the technologies that are making and breaking the news, helping to lead the maritime industry to a safer, more efficient, more profitable, and cleaner future. Welcome aboard. Welcome to Maritime Matters, the MarineLink Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Troutwine, the editor and publisher of Maritime Reporter and Engineering News. Today, in-house, we have an amazing list of guests to discuss in-depth a specific aspect of the maritime digitalization journey, Shipyard 4.0, whatever you want to call it. It's the opportunities and the challenges in bringing advanced digital solutions into the U.S. shipbuilding workflow. So joining us today, as I referenced, are a trio of executives. We have Patrick Ryan, the Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of the American Bureau of Shipping, ABS. We have Pete Sinclair, the Director of Technical Services, Fincantieri Marine Group, and also Juan Prieto, the Regional Manager Americas of Cadmatic. To start us off, I'd really like to set the stage, and I'd like to get that 50,000 foot view before we start getting into the granular detail. And Patrick, I think you're best suited for the initial big picture overview and keeping this in the context of U.S. shipbuilding. But on a scale of 1 to 10, where are U.S. shipyards on this digital and automation path today? And what do you see as the greatest challenges for meaningful adoption and use of digital lifecycle thinking?
Yeah, thanks, Greg, and thanks for inviting me to speak today. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I guess I'd probably estimate it's better than half. So we're probably in like the 6 to 7 kind of range. I think there's still a long way to go, but certainly the industry is not new to digitalization. In fact, some things have been around for decades. CAD comes immediately to mind in that category, thinking about how do we do design here in the United States and of course, more broadly around the world. Those types of tools, computer-aided design tools, computer-aided engineering tools have been around for a while. From kind of the broader digitalization perspective, when you start thinking about things like streaming data and digital twins, when you start thinking about things like artificial intelligence, probably our industry is a little more nascent than others with those advanced kind of digitalization approaches. But I think we're all coming a long way very quickly together. At ABS, when we think about, I think you said, what do you see as the great challenges is the end of your question. I tend to think of the kind of the very broad base of all of the different digital things that are going on. One of the big challenges is just getting your arms around it, understanding what technologies a given shipyard or ship design agent wants to go explore, understanding what's kind of out there from a value perspective that's helpful to them, but maybe they're not ready for, or things that they are ready for, but they don't understand or don't have the right people in place. So really kind of understanding that what is the landscape challenges is one of the bigger things that I think everyone is faced with.
Patrick just said, getting your arms around it. And I know that on our previous discussion, you are starting to get your arms around it. When you discuss your digital journey, where are you on that path?
Yeah, I would say that I'm more of a glass half empty kind of person and put us in the 3 to 4 range on a scale of 1 to 10 for a variety of reasons. And I'm talking specifically location dependent, not looking at the entire country or our entire corporation. There's varying degrees of digitization that's in place. The steps to improving digitization, as we had discussed in the past, making a change to the company culture is probably the biggest challenge. The approach of it's the way we've always done it, which is definitely prevalent within shipbuilding, I would say. As Patrick noted, we're not the industry that's on the front foot for most things. And there's a lot of seasoned veterans, I'll say, that started out in the industry in the 70s and 80s who have done things a certain way for years, and it's worked. In the current state of the world and of the industry, however, customers are moving forward, regulatory agencies are moving forward with digitization and automation, and in order to keep up, shipyards really need to move onto that front foot and ideally be at least hand in hand with the customers, with regulatory agencies, and with suppliers, or preferably a step ahead, or at least up to par with all the other people, the stakeholders that we interact with.
No, that's excellent. Well, I love your seasoned veteran concept because of the color of my hair and my receding hairline suggests that I'm definitely a quote unquote seasoned veteran. So Juan, if I could turn to you for a minute, the conversation here obviously is about U.S. shipbuilding and that is your area of cover. But we often reference lessons learned from other industries or world regions. Now, your company, as well as ABS and Fincantieri, are of course global. But when you look around the world, can you share any samples, any countries, regions, companies that you think or that you see as advanced in this digital integration into shipbuilding procedure?
Yeah, I am now focusing mostly on North America, but before that, I was working with European shipyards. So this digitalization, as Patrick said, it started a long time ago with CAD, and I think most of the companies nowadays, or if not all of them, are doing 3D designs, especially after basic design. But this digitalization and digital twin is a topic that started not too long ago. So I would say that the Europeans, they are also not, it's a very conservative industry, as Pete had mentioned. But in Europe, we have a few that, and every company has this digital twin idea a little bit different, and they apply this however it works for them. So some companies, they have this digital twin and they do digitalizations also, let's say, on a drawing level, where they're using everything on screens and they are rarely printing drawings anymore. But there are companies that are still relying on that, and this digital twin is basically just a 3D model where they are placing comments and markups and doing, let's say, review on that. So this digitalization, digital twin, it depends a little bit on how much the company is going into the, let's say, into the details and how much they want to invest time and how much, let's say, how can I put this, resistance from the team to adopt these new technologies. But let's say talking about countries, I know that in the Netherlands industry, where Cadmatic has one of the main offices, they are using quite much our digital twin solutions, and even Pete at Fincantieri Bay, they have started with that as well.
I think both Juan and Pete both rightly identified kind of this resistance to change in the industry as one of the big challenges, and certainly we see that at ABS as well, and I think that's an important part. One thing that I would offer is that we are seeing, you might think that digitalization at kind of a large scale would start with large, big capital projects. So for those that don't know my background, I spent 20 years at the largest shipyard in the U.S. In Virginia, building aircraft carriers and submarines before joining the Bureau. And so firsthand knowledge, the millions of pieces of data that are managed inside the aircraft carrier or submarine designs, truly amazing, and that is being leveraged for the construction. But even at ABS, from my perspective, we're seeing very small yards. We had a case where we had a barge being modified in Alaska, and they used 3D scanning and captured that in a CAD environment and submitted that to ABS to approve their modifications from a plan review perspective and get their certification squared away. And we've seen in Texas tugboats, a rototug built here in Texas from the ground up, being designed in 3D all the way through to construction. And so it's not just the big capital projects, the really expensive things that are really digging into digitalization. It's happening all across the spectrum of shipbuilding here in North America. And certainly it's more, in my opinion, of the ability or the willingness of that yard to deal with the change that Pete and Juan mentioned, right? And it's really kind of this internal kind of, your self-motivation to capture value from digitalization because you see it and you take the appropriate steps, whether it's using laser scans or whether it's using CAD or whether you're building full-up digital twins on very complex systems like aircraft carriers. It can still happen and it can still work for a given yard or design agent here in North America.
We often see that there is a lot of this resistance because they do think that this digitalization has to go globally to the entire company, but instead we can also do a step-by-step approach where we start with this department, be in engineering or production, and grow into the other departments and to other use cases inside the company. And then digitalization happens, slowly inside the company instead of this full blown out implementation that sometimes the companies think that they have to do.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear Pete's perspective on it. But when I was at my prior role, we would always talk in terms of lean manufacturing, Toyota production model, reduction of waste, and that's where the digitalization value gets captured, and that's a way to communicate to shipbuilders. I've always thought.
Yeah, I will jump in there and sort of pick up on a couple of the comments there. Within the U.S., I think the smaller yards are certainly, it's probably easier for them to jump on board with digitization and making change because there's less inertia in the company to change the direction on, and generally more control on how the company is going to be focused. Within Fincantieri globally, there's definitely work being done to push technology and digitization boundaries. The company has subsidiaries doing augmented and virtual reality for use in shipyards, but it's not the kind of thing that's being rolled out globally. It's being developed, and then a guinea pig yard is selected in Italy, or we actually had that technology brought here for at least demonstration. But that type of thing, where it's applied at a small scale first, one department within one yard to see how things are, how they're working in reality or virtual reality, and then develop from there. And it's interesting with Fincantieri. There's a lot of development happening with our Italian yards with the VR and AR. There's RFID tracking advances being done. We have our VARD yards in Romania and Norway that have their own sort of organic digitization that they've developed prior to being acquired by Fincantieri. It's all being rolled in. The long and short is there's no broad plan, I wouldn't say right now, but just developments happening and then being shared, which seems to be working okay. It is moving the company, moving the industry forward.
Okay. No, Pete, I appreciate everyone's insights. And I mean, it actually brings up a good point because I had my next question was kind of looking at that averse to change kind of thread, which again, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen it. I know it's unpopular in some circles to call the maritime industry conservative. But, and again, I'll kind of start with Patrick because I jotted this down when you were talking. But, Patrick, from your experience, when you're talking to yards about this digital change, and I know it's impossible to classify everyone in the same box, but generally, what are they looking to do with it? And if anybody can chime in, I mean, what are some reasonable expectations? And I know that this is not a holistic, all-in-one solution that someone's going to adopt and you're going to say 50% and everybody's going to go away happy. But I mean, what are they looking to do? And what kind of efficiencies or monetary gains are they seeing?
Yeah, I think, from a big flick, everyone's really trying to find value, whether that is reduction of costs, whether that's capture of different kind of designs into their shipyard, whether that's improvement in safety, which of course is what ABS is very interested in. But I think at the end of the day, when I talk to people about why do you want to invest in digitalization, it's because you want to be more agile. You want to be able to manage your change in a better way, whether that's change management on making revisions to drawings, which is clearly faster and easier, you doing that in the digital mode in 3D, or whether you're looking to adapt to new designs and maintain pace with the amazing amount of speed that we see happening in technology, generally speaking, and not just digital technology, but also ship design technology. And I'm really kind of ghosting this, the green energy transition that is upon our industry and the rate of change that we see in designs, whether it's energy efficiency devices or whether it's new fuel types. These types of technologies impact the designs directly and the ability of shipyards to be able to change and adapt to, I've got to take my tug, my destroyer, my platform, fill in the blank, and put batteries or fuel cells on it, or I've got to put a different kind of carbon capture device on it, or I've got to do some other retrofit to something that exists in the fleet. And how do I manage that rapid pace of change efficiently? And digitalization is the way that you do that. So that is usually the way I talk to yards and designers about why go this direction.
Yeah, with regards to our shipyard here, the focus, this is at Bay Shipbuilding, is from a design point of view is on commercial new construction. We do military work, but it's not designed in-house, it's designed at a sister company. So with the commercial new construction, we do almost everything is a one-off, never done before. And there's not much in the way of production runs in U.S. commercial shipbuilding. You do get a few contracts with 5 vessels, smaller vessels, that type of thing. So the goal for us is to be able to utilize digitization to a point that makes sense for what we're doing. We can't have full-blown digital models on every project unless there's a contractual requirement. We need to sort of balance between what makes sense from a financial point of view and producing the end information for our production, and then the end data information and product for our customer.
So that's a fascinating point, Pete. Actually, just recently, I had a conversation with the head of IT and technology at Fairbanks Morris Defense, and we were talking about digital twins. And he was very succinct in saying that, it doesn't have to be on every single piece of equipment on the ship. I mean, when I think of digital twins, I think of the big picture. I think of the entire ship, its model that follows it throughout life. But it doesn't sound like it has to be that entire picture. It can be piecemeal if you want to put it like that. So, Pete, since you're our lone shipyard on this call, and I know I already kind of like usurped my question earlier by asking you to give a scale of 1 to 10, but can you get a little more granular? Specifically, how is your shipyard today by department using digital solutions, and what do you see more importantly as the next step?
As I mentioned previously, I think we're on the 4 out of 10 realm, the scale of how advanced we are. As would be expected, engineering is probably leading the way. It almost certainly is. As Juan knows, we use Cadmatic here for our current new construction project that we're working through for an SOV. Everything done in the engineering realm is digital, basically. Once we get away from the engineering group, get into PP&C, production planning and control, into quality, purchasing, everything is digitized these days to some degree. The biggest challenge I think that we have is integration. So we'll have Cadmatic model, but it's in no way connected to our ERP system, and somebody else is using a spreadsheet, and we've finally moved an aspect of our company into a database so that a few departments are sharing the same information. But that's probably the one of the real challenges, is sharing common information and stopping it from being fragmented. And there's obvious challenges beyond that when we talk about physical equipment, pieces of machinery, our panel line, our cutting machines, that kind of thing, that I'll call them older assets, let's say 15 years old, which were not originally designed to be automated in certain ways. The digital world, computer world has moved a long way in 15 years. So there's a challenge there, an investment. Do we upgrade existing equipment? Does it require new equipment to communicate better with the software? So integration would be one of the bigger challenges, making sure everything is talking together, and that's easier said than done.
Yeah, but to add a little bit on that, so like Pete said, they are using Cadmatic on the design, and they also have eShare, which is our digital twin solution. And on the eShare, you can bring a lot of these things connected. So in our eShare, you have the 3D model coming from Cadmatic, or even coming from our competitors, because eShare is very agnostic related to 3D model. And in there, you can connect different equipments and different pieces of the 3D model to the ERP system, to the Excel worksheets, to the drawings, to the manuals, and to everything that in the end you want to be connected to this 3D model. So we had a case also here in the US at Gloucester, where they have part of the model done in Cadmatic and part of the model done in a competitor software. And in eShare, they were able to bring this together and see piping and structure on the same model that was not possible to be done before. And that was giving them, let's say, some challenges to be able to do that, because it was two different modelers, two different softwares that didn't communicate, and they could do that in eShare and integrate that. And in a couple of days, they were able to set these up and present these to their client. And then the client was quite happy to see everything in one model. So let's say the digitalization is catching up with the needs, and we have solutions that are, let's say, helping the shipyards to get there, especially with this integration. I think that's the biggest challenge nowadays, like you said, to get everyone to communicate about the same thing. It's always a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Greg, I'd certainly like to offer a here on integration challenges. As you can well imagine, from a position of a class society, we have to communicate with some 200 shipyards around the world. So it's not just different platforms at a same shipyard, but it's being able to integrate all of those things together. And from a technology perspective, the solution that we went down was to use product lifecycle management technology, or PLM technology. It's a very fancy kind of database that can manage lots of different types of information. And if your listeners are really tracking what's going on with class submittals for approval in 3D, they'll probably be thinking, well, there's a standard that the class societies put together, and that's called OCX, or Open Class Exchange, which is something that ABS certainly participates in. But strategically, my opinion is that it's still premature in the industry to settle on a standard, because there's still too much change going on. And really, the tipping point for adoption of 3D digital at a grand scale comes from the savings that you get in production. So I think where Pete said, hey, engineering's using it first, that's certainly where it starts. Agree 100%. From a class society's perspective, to go to do 3D plan review, we don't choose to do that to save money for the yards in their class exchange. We do it to enable them to not produce 2D drawings for class purposes, because they choose not to do it for production. Because the big cost savings is on the production side. So all the downstream stakeholders after ship construction starts need to be able to also consume the 3D, which is why ABS in particular is really focused on 3D plan review as a path forward for the future. And whether that comes from a Cadmatic model, whether that comes from OCX, or whether that comes from something else, being able to look at all of those different types of solutions and provide that safety review from a class perspective is a huge and hard challenge. And so I think, rightly, everyone in the industry is going to take a look at this integration challenge differently. But I do think that the technology is out there to help solve those problems.
I was going to piggyback on a couple of the comments by both the gentlemen here. When it comes to the yard, at times we don't know what we don't know. So with regards to the eShare application as an example, yeah, we're using it. We know it's a tool, but I don't think we understand the full capability that we could use in that tool. So we may have integration available to us that we don't even know about or don't fully appreciate how to implement. And then going on with the comment about using the 3D model all the way through into production, that's an area where we have some degree of focus. I'll call it the paperless situation for the shop floor. It certainly is not paperless right now. The best advances that we would have today on a day-to-day basis would be shop supervision having PDFs on a tablet, so they can take not have a pile of paper. They just have a tablet with them. It may be surprising, but some of the most basic challenges that we have with that type of thing, using a tablet with a model or even a PDF, biggest challenge is probably Wi-Fi and getting connectivity on board a vessel. Big steel boxes don't really conduct very well. So we have challenges with that on a day-to-day basis. So.
Yeah, I can add to this point. So indeed, what you said, there is a lot of features on eShare that you might not know, but it goes to what I said that you start with a smaller implementation and you grow bigger in the cases because doing just a full blown out implementation also takes time from the shipyards, and usually you're quite busy with the day-to-day work to also be focusing on this. And regarding this Wi-Fi and getting the PDF, a lot of the shipyards in Europe, they are going that way, paperless, maybe everything on an iPad or a tablet, or also workstations at a workshop. But also for that, we also have solutions. So we have Ego, which is basically an e-share on a tablet interface, and it works in offline mode, exactly for that reason that was made. Because when you go in a vessel where you don't have Wi-Fi, you need to have access to the documents. You can do that in an offline mode, make all the annotations, take pictures if something is wrong, and then when you go back to the Wi-Fi, you have internet signal, you synchronize this information back to the 3D digital twin model. So there's a lot of available technologies out there, but it's also a matter of the shipyard having the time and investing, let's say, the time to be able to capture everything that is out there.
No, that's excellent insight. That's appreciated. From what all three of you gentlemen said, it just kind of struck me. Maybe this is an issue, maybe it's not an issue, but the speed of technology evolution, the way things are developing, new solutions coming along. Does that play into this discussion? And also, even just talking when Pete was talking about, having iPads with PDFs on the shop floor, and again, you're looking at now more of an IT solution in the shipbuilding industry. And I would contend that a lot of the IT graduates coming out of school do not think of shipbuilding as their first stop for their IT journey. So, my very long winded question is, does the speed and the evolution of technology, is it picking up speed? It certainly seems like it from where I sit. Does that play into the challenges of integrating this technology? And how does this whole digital twin and this whole digital little discussion play into the workforce discussion? Because everywhere I look, north, south, east, west, everywhere, people are looking, our companies are looking for people.
Okay, so I'll jump in, and that's make an interesting point there, one I hadn't considered. Yes, absolutely. Workforce limitations is a huge challenge for us across the board, whether it's in engineering and production and that type of thing. But the point that you made about the IT professionals, shipbuilding is not their first port of call, I don't think. So with advances in digitization, it really requires staff, ironically, to put that in place. And I think we have the same challenges in hiring for IT. And then keeping on top of the new technology is a task beyond what I would say typically IT would be doing, and then even more so IT within a shipyard environment. And so that is a real key point.
No, that's okay. There's a very positive spin to this as well, right? I mean, when you take on an initiative to digitize yourself, you are going to attract the naval architects that are coming out of school that want to be digitally focused. You are going to attract the mariners that want to be digitally focused. And, it's not just about IT, right? It really is about finding the right people with the right skills and the right people who want to be lifelong learners. Because, as you said, Greg, and because Pete talked about, this pace of change in this digitalization is happening so fast. It's not so much about someone learned artificial intelligence in school 10 years ago, and therefore they're a great hire, right? No one did, right? They're a great hire because they're lifelong learners and they're passionate about keeping up with the pace of technology. And those are the people that, whether they're IT professionals or they're naval architects or they're mariners or they're shipbuilders, that you want at your company, and being digital helps you get them.
Juan, did you have anything to add to that before I move on to my next one?
No, I think also on our side, I mean, we are an IT company. We provide software, and also to attract people, it's difficult. It's the competition out there. It's developers, for big companies or games and things like that. And shipbuilding is not on their mind. And But to be able to develop a CAD system, we really need to have really good software developers because it's not something that is that easy. And when you mix that together with shipbuilding, where you need to have also knowledge of how, let's say, the production works on the shipyard, there is even less people that you can find to be able to develop something like that. So there's a lot of, let's say, internal knowledge that we have to share to these new software developers to learn about how things are done in shipbuilding, because it's clearly not the same as developing software for other stuff, where you can usually use a general software developer, but when you're doing CAD for shipbuilding, you need something very specific. And to get production outputs and things like that, you need specific skills that is very hard to find in the market.
Pete, I'm just going to stick with you for one more quick question. You've discussed your experiences, you've discussed your challenges, but could you put it concisely? What do you consider to be your yard's greatest challenge to fully embrace, to fully leverage the digital lifecycle approach?
Easy answer would be dollars and cents. In order to fully embrace it and implement it, it requires investment, and justification of that investment is probably a big challenge in moving forward on that. Contrary to popular belief, commercial shipbuilding is not a great money-making venture. So, making investments have to be made wisely and carefully, and justifying something as, I would say, soft and not tangible as software and digitization is definitely a difficult thing to get around.
So, Patrick and Juan, I'll put you guys on the spot on this one. We say digitalization, regularly and often in my daily life, but that word opens up so many avenues for a shipyard to take. It's a very broad scope, including obviously things like digital twins. But from where you both sit, what's the low-hanging fruit? What can shipyards look to incorporate immediately, and I say hesitantly, easily, to reap the greatest benefits?
Well, I think really when you start to think about what do they do first, it may not necessarily be low-hanging fruit. The first thing that I always advise people to do is go prototype. So don't try and build a gigantic system that you're going to revolutionize your shipyard or your design force with, because probably I think one of my counterparts here said, you don't know what you don't know. There's a ton of discovery to be done in your company about digitalization. So prototyping first. And then the other piece of, I think it's low-hanging fruit, but the other thing that you really need to do is get your arms around your data. Like at ABS, one of our big challenges is we have 160 years of great information, but it's all over the place. It's in old drawings. It's on microfilm. It's in CAD models. Now, someone said, well, do you really need the microfilms? Maybe not, right? But a lot of that is the basis for which our rules were developed, and is the basis for which we achieve the calibration for structural safety that we have today. And so we certainly don't want to lose that in our own digital transformation. So understanding how do we catalog, how do we manage, how do we bring disparate pieces of information together so that specific systems can get access to it. It goes back to the interoperability challenge that Pete highlighted earlier, right? It's not only about managing your trades, it's about managing the data that they use and all the different places that those things come from. So prototyping and data cataloging and data understanding would be the places that I'd recommend people start.
Yeah, I think the prototyping is very interesting, and we have seen this happen where we started to implement a digital twin solution, and the shipyard company had a very, let's say, specific idea of how this should work. And midway through this prototyping, they realized that there is a better way to do this. And in the end, the final product was very different than what they thought from the beginning. So you're really going to learn this process as you go along. And maybe halfway through, it's going to change because you see that the tool allows you to do a lot more than you initially thought. And since the tools allow you to do things also differently, maybe there is a better way than you started in the beginning. So, like I said, like Patrick said, prototyping, starting small, and then growing this digital twin from a smaller perspective, I think is something that the shipyards can start doing.
I just want to stay on that digital twin thread for a moment because you look at maritime today, and there are so many challenges being faced, from the digitalization to autonomy to the big one, decarbonization. So, how does the digital twin discussion fit into this decarbonization discussion, and what do you specifically see as the biggest obstacles to overcome today to fully embrace and adopt digital twin technology?
I'm happy to dive in because I love the discussion. Now, when we talk about digital twins, it's not just about geometry and metadata. It's also connecting to the physical world with some kind of a streaming connection, whether that's a 60 hertz, stream from a piece of rotating machinery, or whether that's a 6-month periodicity on gauging on an aging FPSO. Right? There's some physical connection to make it a twin, but we do say that all twins are purpose built to solve a problem. So it's not. One of my colleagues mentioned earlier, I believe, that it's not kind of this holistic, gigantic digital twin of a vessel. It could be just a system. It could be just one particular challenge, one particular problem area. And Greg, as you mentioned, does decarbonization play a role here? I think 100% it does, because understanding the impacts of different retrofits, understanding the impacts of different design solutions before a ship is even built, where you can leverage modeling and simulation, you can leverage streaming data, machine learning, and the digital technologies at our disposal today help us, again, deal with that change. And being digital means being agile, and being agile means managing that change. And certainly digital twins are a very important part of the bigger puzzle.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this digital twin, from the small things or the big ones, when you get this feedback to the design is where you can improve this decarbonization, where you can improve, let's say, the ship systems and the ship overall. But you need to have that data to be able to take good decisions about this design, and you're only going to get that when you have, for instance, a digital twin connected.
Yeah, for us at the shipyard, I don't think we're on the front foot for this type of innovation. Our customers are bringing things to us, requirements that demand a digital twin or reduction of the carbon footprint, that type of thing. I don't think there's any reason why a shipyard can't be on the front foot. It's challenging, as I mentioned earlier, if everything you build is a prototype, a one-off, never to be done again. But the investment required to get to that, the stage where you're evaluating multiple options and selecting the best all-around solution isn't always feasible on the commercial timelines. So that's an area where we're definitely behind.
Excellent. And again, incredible insight. Gentlemen, I just have one more question for you. And I'm quite certain that this has already been answered in several different ways on several different days. But as we wrap up, can you put in a concise sentence or two for anyone listening interested to make this digital transformation? What is the best first step? And Patrick, since I started with you, we'll start with you again.
Well, I think the right first step is to really believe in it. If you go at this problem and you think, well, I hope it's going to, or I heard that somebody else is able to, or you gotta go with a mindset that's positive and forward leaning. And I think whether you start with prototyping, whether you start with data management, whether you start with retrofits, whether you start with new design, just having that commitment is the best place to start.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think starting with a vision of what the end state looks like. Okay, things change, but you have general direction. And once you have that end state visualized, to create a roadmap of how to get there. Maybe it's a roadmap that's just a straight line. We're going straight to the finish, or there's multiple paths that need to be taken by department, but all with a sort of common goal in mind.
Yeah, I could also add to try to be also more, from a tool perspective, be more open-minded. So let's say try to overcome these resistance and try to also listen to the solutions that are out there and see what in the end is going to benefit you And in the end, if you think that you have to handpick features here and there, then that's the way to go. But like, be open-minded and try to overcome these resistances. Probably the first thing that I would say, because that's usually what we get a lot, is the resistance to change.
Yeah, pick up on something you mentioned there. Sorry, pick up on something. I'd mentioned earlier we struggle with integration across the board. That said, I don't think there's such a thing as a silver bullet solution to digitization. This one magic trick will fix it all. It is a case of selecting the right tools for the right application and then making them work together. So, final thought there.
No, it's excellent, and I appreciate that. So, Patrick, Pete, and Juan, I truly appreciate your time here today. I know everyone's incredibly busy, but I think this is a wildly important topic. We talk about it daily, but it's incredible to be able to get this type of experience and this type of expertise. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for all your time.
Enjoyed it greatly, Greg. Thank you for having us.
All right, thank you.
It was great. Thank you very much for hosting this.
Thank you for listening to Maritime Matters. If you would like to be featured on a future Maritime Matters podcast, visit www.marinelink.com or email maritimematters@marinelink.com.